we got going on here today is I'm going to be doing the brake pads on my Harley-Davidson Sportster 72. Inside the manual here, it gives you instructions on how to basically remove the calipers to do the brake pads. But most of the videos that I've been watching online, you basically just undoing like a brake pad pin, and then they just kind of drop out. But there's a little bit more to it than just that. But I am definitely going to try the shortcut before I try the actual factory manual way of doing it, because that just seems kind of stupid to me if I don't have to do it. What I bought here was some EBC brake pads, basically front pads, rear pads. These aren't super high performance pads. They're just a little bit better than organic. I'm not running MotoGP or anything. I'm just riding around town, the occasional highway boot, farting around, that sort of thing. I don't need super high performance. I just need to be able to stop at a stop sign and a red light and maybe jam the brakes on when someone cuts me off. So I guess we'll get at her now. One of the first things that I had to do is I need to get this brake master cylinder upright and level. And as you can see, where the bike's parked on its kickstand, it's kind of cocked over a little bit. So I get to use my favorite jack that I absolutely hate. And I'm just gonna jam that under the bike. And that way we'll be able to put it upright, and I'll be able to pull the cap off of that brake reservoir. And just in case we get a little bit of spillage, we'll protect the tank here with my welding jacket. Anytime we're dealing with Phillips head screws like these, it's always a great idea to test fit a couple of your screwdrivers first, and always use the largest one that fits. So once I pull this cover off, we'll check the condition of the fluid, make sure that it's good. The fluid looks really clean. Just wipe off these edges. That way we don't get any spill off onto the paint. Set the cover back on. That way no dust or dirt makes its way in there. Let's go down to the caliper. All the other guys online, they're saying what they're doing is they're kind of going up in between the brake disc and the pad with a putty knife. Get that started and start pushing that piston in, and then kind of double up with like a pry bar or something and just slowly squeeze that piston in. So just using a plastic interior panel pry bar, and I found I was able to get that between the brake pad and the disc. I'm just holding a little bit of pressure on there, and I can actually feel the piston collapsing. So I'm not pushing on that too hard. I'm just letting it do its thing. And then once I have that moved, I'll get in there with the putty knife and try to make sure it's a little bit more flat the whole way through. So you can actually see right there's a little bit of a gap. So I was able to collapse that piston a little bit. So now I'll get the putty knife in there and I'll finish spreading that apart. So the next step is going to be to loosen this off. That way I can laterally move this back and forth, and I'll be able to collapse the inside as well. And then we'll be able to just drop the pads out as soon as I pull this all the way out. There we go. I always get scared taking things apart for the first time. Now I'm gonna pull this out, and hopefully once I do that, when the pin comes out of the rear pad should just drop. There we go. We'll push this in. There we go. So there's the rear pad. Well, front inside. Doesn't look too bad. It's a little bit chewed up. There's definitely a lot of life left on that. but it was making a little bit of noise. I already ordered the new pads, so I'm gonna put the new pads in. So now I should be able to pull this pin. Apparently it's spring loaded, and once the pin is out, then that outside pad should drop. So there's the pin. I'm definitely gonna have to clean that up. That looks pretty disgusting. There we go. And there's the outside pad. Again, a little chewed up, not bad. Still a ton of life left of that, but since it's out, it's getting changed. So there's a backing plate on these that I'm gonna have to transfer over to these. And as I was reading the instructions on these, I saw that this is asbestos free. That's no fun. Looks like there's a shim in there too that we'll be retaining. Pretty gross. I'm gonna clean those up a little bit. So we got these as clean as I'm happy with, so we'll just start stacking these back up and get them ready to go back on the bike. Perfect. I'm gonna clean up this pin now. It's pretty disgusting and covered in brake dust. We got that nice and cleaned up. I know it still kind of looks like crap, but there's no little picks or anything on there. My fingernail's not getting caught on anything, so that should work just fine. So, time to start throwing things back together. So this one's going to be the outer pad, which is going to go in first. And once this gets fed in, then this pin's going to hold that in place. So apparently I'm going to feel the clip inside the caliper grab onto these little nubs here, and then I can start feeding the pad in, or the pin. It's kind of difficult to zoom in on that, but basically I'm going to push this up, and there it goes, it's clipped in. So now I can feed in this pin. Once I swing the pad up a little bit. Again, I'm working on the floor here. Kind of sucks. First pad installed. And now time for the rear. So I found out what I was doing wrong. The pistons actually weren't collapsed all the way. So this pad kept getting hung up, going inside the back of the caliper there. But now both the pistons are collapsed. I've got the outside pad put in that I've already shown. And I spared you guys watching me struggle with collapsing those pistons and figuring out what the hell I was doing wrong. What a treat. Right up into the clip. Awesome, there we go. It looks like the pin's all the way in, so we'll start threading that in. So we do actually have a torque value for that, and that caliper pin right here, 131 to 173 inch-pounds. So we've got our torque wrench set to 170 inch-pounds. We're just waiting for that nice click. There it is, all torqued. Now, because we collapsed the pistons, all the fluid has made its way up into the master cylinder. So, in order to get that fluid back down, we're gonna have to throw the cover on and then squeeze it a couple times, and then I'll put that fluid back in that I took out. Throw the cover on, put these in nice and light. All we want to do is make sure that when we're pumping this handle, none of the fluid makes its way out. This lever's going to feel like crap because there's no fluid down at the end, but once all the fluid gets pumped through, it'll feel a lot better. 1, 2, 3. There it comes. So now we're going to take this cover back off again and put the fluid back in that I had out. I'm probably making this a lot more difficult than it needs to be. So looking inside this syringe is actually a pretty good snapshot of how the brake fluid in the system is, and that's clean. There's no particulates or anything shooting around in there, so I'm not concerned about putting bad fluid back in there. Now we'll throw the master cylinder lid back on, and then we are done with the front brakes. Yeah, that's just snug for now. Check our sight glass. That's full. Excellent. Our master cylinder does, in fact, have a torque. It's 9 to 17 inch-pounds. The lowest torque on this torque wrench is 30 inch-pounds, and I really don't want to over-torque those screws, so I'll just do them hand tight. Unfortunately, it's snowing out today, so I won't be able to take this out for a test ride. But what I will do is I'll get this pulled off the stand, and I'll drop it down on the floor and just kind of rock it back and forth with the brake on, just to make sure that the pads are seated correctly. I'm a little bit paranoid over that stuff. Last thing I want to do is ride down the highway and have my brake pad pop out of the caliper. Absolutely hate these jacks. Well, that should be good. So there we have it. That's how to change the front brake pads on a 2016 Harley-Davidson Sportster. I don't know if like the 48 and the Custom and all the other Sportsters are the same way, but that's how to do it on the 72. So if you guys want to find out how to do the rear brakes through the eyes of an idiot, tune in for the next video.